Hi everyone, Aiden here at the etrailer. Today, we're going to be taking a look at the Thule Motion 3 Rooftop Box. This is going to be their large size with 16 cubic feet of storage space. For the looks, you've got a choice between the black or their Titan color, which is this really dark gray behind me. So if you're finding yourself running a little bit short on room in your vehicle and you need somewhere to put the extra stuff, a roof box could be a good fit for you. But let's check it out. So let's first open this up and take a look at the space you actually get inside. You're going to get 2 keys in your kit, and you can open the box from either side. But you'll need to unlock it in order to squeeze that latch and open the lid. I really like that latch mechanism. It's very easy to operate. Just got to squeeze it until you see a bit of red. That's when you know the latches are disengaged. And push up on the handle, and the lid will spring open for you and just support itself. Now inside you can see right away we've got 2 pretty large duffel bags in there, and then underneath those we've got 2 pairs of skis. You could certainly fit more in that space, but that's just something that we have to give you a sense of scale. If you do plan on using this for skis and snowboards, it's important to know the maximum ski length it can support is 180 centimeters. And here's a better look inside. Like I said, you've got a ton of extra space on the side of this pair of skis and of course on the other side too. Now, to get a bit more specific, your internal dimensions side to side, you're working with 28 and 3/16 of an inch, so it's a pretty wide box. And height-wise, you're looking pretty good too, at 13 and 15/16 of an inch. And as I close the lid here, you can see it's a pretty tall box throughout. You don't get a ton of taper off towards the front and the rear, so that maximum usable height is going to stay true throughout the bulk of the box. So you're going to get a lot of usable space and not have to sacrifice as much real estate because of that. All throughout the carrier, you're going to see these straps, 3 cam buckle straps that are included, and tie off to these integrated points at the front, middle, and rear of the cargo box, so you can keep your stuff tied down and secured from shifting around too much in transit. Right next to that, we've got our clamps, which will tighten down or loosen up with a hand knob here. And they do fully remove just by unclipping them from the tracks. And you can better see that jaw mechanism underneath, which will grab around the crossbars. When dropping them back in, these tracks do have adjustment to slide them around to meet different crossbar spreads. So just line it up with yours, clip in the clamp, and start to tighten it down until you hear a click from the integrated torque device. And when you're ready to close it down, there is a gray strap to the lid that you can use to pull the lid a bit closer to you and grab the handle and close the rest of the way. That handle, again, is just really nice because we don't have to get our hands on the glossy finish of the box and smudge it up as quickly. Of course, once it latches, remember to lock and remove the key. And you won't be able to remove that unless it is properly latched. So how we saw a bit of red on the latch earlier when we opened it, that should all be gone before we turn the key. And the opening from the other side is going to be just the exact same as from the driver's side. And the reason you might choose to open one side versus the other is, one, for just installing those clamps because reaching to the opposite end is a bit of a stretch. And 2, if you're close to something like a wall, another car in a parking garage, and you've got some larger things in here that you're feeding down to one of your passengers, and you don't really have the room next to you on one side, you can go to the other where you do have a bit more room. Just like internal dimensions are important to know what you can actually fit in the box, external dimensions are really important to know for how it actually sits on the vehicle and for storage in your garage when it's not in use. It's going to be a pretty long box coming in at 76 and 15/16 of an inch. It's a pretty wide box too, sitting at 35 inches. And it's fairly tall, adding about 16 and 11/16 of an inch. Now, what it actually adds to the vehicle though, from the top of the crossbar to the tallest point of the box, is really more like 15 inches because it's so low profile. that overall height is taking into account the part that drops slightly below your crossbars to give it this sleek, low to the roof finished look. And that kind of leads me into what I like about this box and really a lot of Thule's roof boxes quite a bit. And that's the looks, the aesthetics of it. Thule, in my opinion, does aesthetics better than anyone when it comes to roof boxes because you've got all these really nice lines and contours around the box, which is nice to look at. And that glossy finish does match the metallic finish of our paint pretty well, so it doesn't look out of place on top of the vehicle. I know a lot of people like to run with their roof boxes on full time. I even know a few people that keep them on their vehicle all the time and really hardly use them for storage, but they just like the looks. If that's you, a Thule roof box is probably a good fit for you. And there are some functional things to that too, like the fact that it's pretty even throughout, so you don't get this really aggressive taper where there's not much usable space at the nose, or at the back where there's a pretty aggressive cut up. And one, it's going to work well with maybe a factory antenna, or two, it's going to work well with your hatch. Now that will vary depending on the vehicle you're putting this on, but this works great on our car today, and I didn't think it was going to based on how tight it sat to the roof. So on most vehicles, I think you're going to find yourself in a pretty good spot with clearance. Now, one downside to the glossy finish is that it's going to show things like scratches and scuffs, dirt, debris, a lot more quickly. And for ours today, actually just out of the box, some of the packaging that's on here actually left behind some sticky residue too. And for a box that's kind of all about the aesthetics and the looks, especially with this clean, glossy finish, that might not happen for everyone, but it happened for us today. And it definitely takes away from the looks. And as you run around with this box, if you're going on a long road trip, that's going to collect dirt throughout the road trip, and by the end, it's not going to be looking near as nice as it does right now. So it's just something to consider. My alternative to that would be something with a matte finish or a texture. The Yakima Skybox NX16 is one that I've worked with personally. I took it on a 3,000 mile round trip out to all the national parks in Utah. Very dusty, red dirt, and after just hosing it off when I got home, it looked good as new. Anything that we hit along the way, whether it be trees overhanging our path or bugs on the road, it washed right off and it looked pretty much the exact same as it did when we left. Whereas with a box like this, I don't know if I could say the same thing. Just in the past, we've seen that the glossy finish doesn't age as gracefully. One thing I was impressed with though when driving this box around and getting up to highway speeds was the wind noise. I was particularly worried with how low it sits and close to the roof it was, that small gap would create a bunch of room for wind noise to appear. And I gotta say, I was really impressed. Driving against the wind around 50 miles an hour, you started to hear some noise, but it's this really dull, low pitch. I doubt that our GoPro is able to accurately pick it up, but inside the vehicle driving with nothing on the radio, you could barely hear it. So turning on some music, a podcast, just talking to a passenger, you probably wouldn't notice it at all. And driving with the wind, it really wasn't making itself present at all. So not too bad overall. I'd say I was pretty impressed with that. But when you're looking at getting a roof box, what it really comes down to is how you're going to be using it and what's important to you. Looking at options between Thule, Yakima, Inno, you're going to find that a lot of them look pretty similar, and they're all going to function very similar too. And something to consider with all roof boxes is the weight capacity. Yes, it is a pretty large box, but you can only load 165 pounds inside it. And that is pretty standard across the range of offerings for roof boxes that we carry. Something to consider though, beyond all that, is that your roof rack is likely going to be the limiting factor. Because the empty box is going to weigh 43.6 pounds, you have to take that away from your roof rack's weight capacity. And typically for roof racks, it's going to be around 165 for aftermarket, but on these factory bars, your rating is likely going to be even lower to start with. So for this particular Subaru Outback today with factory crossbars, we're not going to be able to load much weight on the roof. And that's really just going to come down to your vehicle. You have to check your owner's manual to find your weight capacities and look at your roof rack and see what you have. you may consider an alternative like a hitch-mounted cargo carrier if you need to load some heavier items, or just remember to keep your lightweight stuff up top. Things like people's clothes or camping gear that maybe isn't very heavy but takes up a lot of volume. But the thing I always tell people when it comes to roof boxes is it just comes down to how you're using it and all the little features, because big picture, options from Thule, Yakima, Inno, they're all going to look very similar, and they will, on the whole, be very similar to one another. But you find that the minor differences is what really makes a box fit for you. And the minor differences for this Thule Motion 3 is really that latch mechanism. It's going to be the hand clamps that attach really well to even a smaller factory crossbar here. And I think just the overall design aesthetic. If you like those things too, and you think that this 16 cubic foot size is going to be the right option for you, then I think it's going to be a great fit for your roof. Of course, remember, if you like the features but you need something bigger, you can find larger sizes in that Thule Motion 3 lineup, and you can always find that gray color option if it matches your vehicle a bit better. But today, this is just our look at the Thule Motion 3 Rooftop Box. I'm Aiden, and thanks for watching.